I'm Kristen, and today we're going to be showing you a little bit about what we do with blood samples. So this is blood from a bald eagle that we got about 30 minutes ago, and I'm going to show you some of the testing that we do in-house to kind of see what the health is. So the first thing, so in this tube, there's some stuff in there that keeps it from clotting, because blood, even like humans, they get clots to help any bleeding stop when you have a wound. So when you're doing a blood test, you don't want it to clot so that you can still use the blood. So this is a micro hematocrit tube, and I'm going to put this right in here, and it's going to kind of suck it in through capillary action is how that works. I don't know if you can actually see.
Yeah,
So
that's super cool.
Slowly going in. Alright, so that's about enough, and then what we a lot of times do is put a little bit of clay at the tip of this, but right now I'm going to use this blood. I'm going to put it on this piece of paper. So this is something that we do to sex our birds because we don't know the gender. A lot of times the females are a little bit larger, but it's not a guarantee, and we've definitely kind of goofed that up in the past. So we have a barred owl that we named Bob, and we did not know that she was actually a female until she laid an egg. We also have a red-tailed hawk named Russell, so the size thing is not always a guarantee. So to know for sure what sex they are, we're gonna send this to a lab and they're gonna check the DNA. So all it takes is a little drop, and I'm just gonna spread it out a little bit. And once that dries, I'm gonna put a piece of tape on it and then just ship it in the mail. And then they'll let us know if our new bald eagle ambassador is a boy or a girl. So he doesn't have a name yet. So we're gonna try to wait and see which sex he is before we do that. Okay, so then the next thing that we do is using the blood that's in this tube, we're gonna spin it down. So this is a centrifuge, and what this does, there's a mechanism inside, and this starts spinning really fast, and it separates the blood into several components. Oops, I just broke that. Okay, so this one was pre-spun because that does take about 5 minutes. So in this tube, so these are the red blood cells that are at the bottom, and there's a little tiny layer right here, which is the white cells, and that's called the Buffy Coat. And then this clear part up here is the plasma. And I'm going to do several different tests using these. So the first one is the packed cell volume. And so those are the packed red blood cells. So I'm going to line this up. Oh, we have a little bit too little. So the bottom of the red blood cells, I'm going to find the 50. Okay, so sometimes you need a magnifying glass to really, because those lines are really tiny, but it looks like we're at about 45. So the packed cell volume is the percentage of red blood cells in the blood, and it's really the oxygen in the blood. And if you have a packed cell volume that's too low, that can indicate anemia, but it looks like 45 is good for this one. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the tiny little layer of white cells, and that's called the Buffy Coat. And it's not as accurate as some other tests for white cells, but a high Buffy Coat can indicate an infection. So that's a really good indicator if something is going on with a bird, and we probably have to treat with antibiotics. And then the next test I'm going to do, and his Buffy Coat is like 1. And I know that you guys probably can't see it, but it's a very, very tiny layer. So the next thing, I'm going to cut this slide, and we're going to put the plasma on this little instrument, and we're going to look at the total protein. The total protein can indicate dehydration if it's high or infection. So another really good, easy indicator. And this was such a small amount of blood that we really had to take. So it's a really easy test for us to do. So I'm just gonna use scissors and I'm gonna cut it right above the red blood cells. Okay. And then I'm going to just tap this down a little bit here. Really, we just need a little drop of that plasma. And then this just has to be level. And I'll look through here, and I'm looking for like the difference in color. And his is 4, which is normal. So he looks good. So no dehydration, no infection. And then one of the last things we do with our blood is we make some blood smears. So I'm going to show you what the blood smears kind of look like when they're done. So what we're doing is we put a drop and then we're spreading it. So the smear is really important, and if you see there should be like a feathered edge. And the reason that's important is because it keeps the cells in one level so you can actually read it. So if there's too many cells, if the blood is too thick, then it would be really hard to see the different white cells and red cells in the blood. So I'm going to try to do that on camera, which I might totally fail. I don't know. Oh, yeah, here it is. Okay. Okay, so one little drop, and then I'm going to take another slide and just kind of lightly touch it so it spreads, and then go up. So I did pretty decent. So it should be a really thin layer, and then what we do with this is we will put it in these different stains, and those will stain the cells so we can actually ID the cells. So I have a couple pictures of what we look at. We'll put this, once it's stained, we put this under the microscope, and we do 2 things. One is called the differential, where we're identifying the white cells that the bird has, and the other is the white cell count. And the white cell count is getting an idea of how many white cells are in the blood, which will also indicate infection, inflammation. But then when you find out what the actual white cells are, you can get a better idea of their health. So I don't know how well you can see that. So these are red blood cells. So humans have red blood cells that do not have a nucleus. That's a big difference in birds. So that's the nucleus. So all the red blood cells have nucleus. And this is a white cell, so it's a lot different from that. And this particular white cell is called an eosinophil. There's these little tiny like bubble-like things, and this is the nucleus. It's kind of that shape. So usually there's not many. There might be like 5 to 6% eosinophils. Let's see. So this is another type of white cell called a heterophil. And you see how these are kind of on top of each other. So that's when that feathered edge, that smear, is really important to make sure that there is a layer of cells that are kind of touching but not overlapping. But we can still see that heterophil. Let's see what this one. Oh, this is a fun one. Okay, so these kind of look like red blood cells, but this is actually a blood parasite. So parasites are pretty common in wild raptors, and this is leukocytozoan. And it kind of takes a red blood cell, and it's almost like a little slug. It crawls around and eats. I believe they eat red blood cells. So we see that sometimes, and we can treat that with medication. So this is a monocyte, so it has a more blue color. They're similar to lymphocytes, which are just a little bit smaller than the monocytes. Let's see. So there's 2 back to back, and they have these little rod-shaped granules in them, which is a very classic heterophil look. So they're pretty similar to human white cells, just a little bit different. In each species, they look slightly different too. There's another eosinophil. So high eosinophils could indicate parasites. High heterophils could indicate infection. Yeah, so that's about it. I hope you learned something new. So what we do with all those results, we'll put them in here in our Raptor Mint program, and our vet will take a look and make sure that our birds are healthy.